The top business stories live from the Sky newsroom. On the eve of Chancellor Rachel Reeves's first budget, we look at what to expect as speculation swirls about tax rises and spending cuts. A dire warning from hairdressers about reports that the budget will see an increase in the minimum wage.
It means that potentially people are going to lose their homes and lose their apprenticeships and lose their opportunity to grow.
And more than 1,000 UK office workers at Ford are to strike tomorrow in a dispute about pay and contract changes. A very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. We're going to start with the budget because it is the day before the Chancellor gets to her feet in the Commons to deliver her first budget, and more details are beginning to emerge about what Rachel Reeves will say in the Commons. She's officially confirmed billions more pounds for the NHS, while reports suggest there will be an increase in the national minimum wage. Rachel Reeves insists, though, that there will also be difficult decisions on spending, welfare and taxation. Well, Sky's economic and data editor, Ed Conway, has been breaking down the key things we should expect tomorrow.
With the budget coming up, we're about to be engulfed with all sorts of numbers, data. I want to give you just two big numbers, OK, because this tells most of the story. Ultimately, what is a budget about? It's about the difference between these two bars here. This is taxes, so the money that's coming into the exchequer, and that is spending, the red bar there. And you can see the spending, £1.2 trillion, is considerably bigger than the money coming in to the exchequer. And that is why, difference between those two bars, that's basically why we have a deficit. That's borrowing there, £122 billion. And a lot of the policy that we've had in recent years, a lot of those fiscal rules we keep hearing about, it's all about bringing those two bars so they are closer to each other, so you're not borrowing as much. And that means kind of going and thinking about what is within those bars. So look at spending. You've got social security, welfare, you've got health, you've got other departments, you've got interest and investment. And then on taxes, it's been about looking at things like income tax, national insurance, VAT. Previously, though, the easiest thing that people have cut when they wanted to bring this bar in particular down was investment. So Jeremy Hunt, George Osborne did this, and Jeremy Hunt was planning to bring investment down in order to meet his rules. Look at where investment was planned to go in the coming years. It was going to go down, down, down. Rachel Reeves says she wants to keep it higher. And that would potentially mean, you know, it's possible, but it would potentially mean billions of pounds, tens of billions of pounds, maybe £30 billion to keep it where it is right now, which, back to the big picture, means this gets even bigger. Now, one solution to try and bring these bars closer to each other is to try and raise this one. So, for instance, national insurance, that's one thing that's been mooted, higher employer national insurance contributions. An alternative, slightly more tricky way of doing it, or tricksy way of doing it, is to change the definition of those fiscal rules. And there's two rules. And interestingly, in both of them, it looks like Rachel Reeves is going to omit investment. Look, it's just disappeared from that, which means all of a sudden, the red bar is actually smaller than the blue bar. Now, a lot of people have been looking at this and saying, hang on, aren't markets going to see this as a bit of a fiddle? Aren't they going to start to panic? And they point to charts like this. This is showing the rate at which the UK government borrows right now in financial markets, and that has been going higher. And so some people are saying, look, is this a sign that markets are panicking? It's over 4.2%. Well, maybe, but maybe not, because look at what the US is having to pay at the moment on the same debt. It's going up at the same rate as well. And actually, if you compare the UK with the US and Germany, this has been the range at which our debt has traded ahead of budgets back in the past. So anything within those lines is perhaps seen as the safety zone. And look at where UK government debt is right now. In other words, markets are not panicking, which is a clear contrast with what happened in the run-up to the mini-budget in 2022.
Ed Conway there. Well, let's now speak to Philip Shaw, who's the chief economist at Investec. Very good afternoon to you, Philip. You know what, we're talking about this budget, highly anticipated, potentially the most consequential for decades, and yet we almost know everything that's already in it because it's been trailed so much over the last couple of weeks.
Good afternoon. Yes, that's absolutely right. I think governments over the past few years have begun to trail more and more measures which are actually going to be unveiled. And part of it, I think, is a litmus test to see how well it goes down with the public and markets. But we don't know the exact detail. And of course, chancellors do have a habit of surprising everybody on budget day. And perhaps they want to get the gloom out of the way and then get something which is a little bit more positive on the day itself, so the budget goes down better. But certainly the thrust of what Ed Conway was saying was absolutely correct.
Indeed, and as you say, there will be pain. I'm sure there will be some good news. What are you looking out for effectively tomorrow? What do you think the Chancellor needs to achieve?
Well, she needs to achieve several things. I think the first thing is to reset spending so it's realistic. If you look at the current spending totals, they do not allow for any increases in cash to non-protected departments, which means that they would face 4 or 5 years of austerity. So that's not going to be done. And also, in a wider sense, the Chancellor is aiming to increase the underlying rate of growth of the economy to 2.5% from the current 1 to 1.5% per annum. And to do that, the main tool is going to be to increase government investment and probably also to persuade the private sector to increase business investment as well, to increase the capacity of the economy. Now, she's got to do all that and maintain her fiscal credibility, in short, by not borrowing too much and by convincing markets, actually, that growth is on a long-term, sustainable, higher path.
But taxes are going to go up, aren't they, Philip? And it does seem, whether it's capital gains, national insurance, and even though it's not a tax, it'll still be a burden for business, which is the minimum wage increase. That could hit quite hard.
It could do, that's right. And if you believe the various reports that the Chancellor is aiming to raise something like £35 billion in taxes, which is obviously a considerable amount, you think by raising national insurance employers' contributions, that could produce about 17 billion of that. By freezing personal tax allowances in the medium term for another 2 years, that could probably get her another 7 billion. Ms Reeves has also announced about 5.5 billion of savings over the summer as well. So you put those things together, that's doing the heavy lifting really, and hopefully the consumer and businesses don't have to suffer too much more pain as well.
Philip, you and I have covered and observed many budgets over the years, but we must not forget that this is also an historic one. This is the first time that we've ever had a female Chancellor.
It is, indeed. And, perhaps that is an extra reason why Rachel Reeves wants to reinforce her credibility. And it's always going to be difficult, I think, in a first budget, because first budgets for governments become much more anticipated. They tend to be a lot more radical because they're not only undoing the previous government's policies, they're actually trying to get bad news out of the way relatively early in the electoral cycle. So, yes, there is a lot of pressure on the Chancellor.
Philip, fascinating stuff. We'll all be watching. Starts, as you can see there at the bottom of your screen, 12:30 tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed, Philip Shaw there from Investec. Joining us from central London. Now, another budget detail being reported today is that there'll be an increase of around 6% in the national minimum wage, with a larger boost for younger people. Well, earlier I spoke to Toby Dicker, who founded the Salon Employers Association, and as I spoke to him, he became quite emotional while warning that small businesses in his industry couldn't cope with higher costs.
It means that potentially people are going to lose their homes and lose their apprenticeships and lose their opportunity to grow because you haven't listened. It's so frustrating. I am shaking, I'm sorry. We were ignored by the previous government. We were told, oh, we can't do anything about that. And then we were cancelled. We were taken out of meetings. And I'm frustrated for the employers in our industry. They're done. They're done. You really can't, I can't explain it in any other way. Apprentices are over. Employment's over because you haven't listened.
I think a reminder there that budgets are about numbers, of course, but they're also about people making tough decisions too. And as I say, we'll have full coverage of the budget here on Sky News from 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. But let's move you on to the rest of today's business news now. And HSBC Holdings has beaten third quarter profit expectations, rising 10% to $8.5 billion. It's thanks mainly to rising wealth and wholesale banking revenue. But the London headquartered bank is keeping investors waiting for more detail about how a planned structural overhaul will deliver cost savings. Higher than expected third quarter profits too for BP, posting £1.7 billion. But it is a drop of a third on the same period last year, with the energy giant blaming weaker oil prices. The FTSE 100 company expects to cut costs by £385 million next year. Thousands of Oasis tickets listed on unauthorised sites will start to be cancelled in coming weeks. Promoters say that people trying to sell tickets for a profit are breaking the conditions of sale. They also say that any tickets cancelled will be made available again, but at face value. And you can get the latest on that and indeed all the money news on the Money blog. Just scan the QR code on your screen now. Now, more than 1,000 UK office workers at Ford are to go on strike tomorrow in a dispute over pay and conditions. The union Unite says that the car giant has failed to offer its staff a permanent pay increase and is imposing performance-related pay for everyone from next year. Well, Ford have issued a statement in response to the strike. They say that considering the overall competitiveness of our general salary role, employee pay and benefits package, the company's final offer of a 5% total pay increase for 2023-2024 is fair and balanced. We will continue to engage with Unite and our valued employees and endeavour to resolve the matter. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Vince Passfield, who is a senior officer at Unite, the union, and I began asking him essentially why he was taking those Ford workers out on strike.
Well, we've got over 1,000 full salary staff at a number of locations over the UK at Dagenham, Dunton, Liverpool and Daventry. We're going on strike following a breakdown of contract negotiations that dates back to November 2023. These are supervisors, engineers and other key workers in some non-engineering roles, salaried roles. And we've made a number of reasonable requests to reopen the negotiations. However, Ford blatantly refuse. Instead, what they're trying to impose on our members is 100% performance-related pay through what they refer to as the Ford Global Merit Model. This is a process that's consistently failed the higher graded management who themselves have been in dispute for some while. They also want to make lump sum payments rather than consolidated increase, and there's attempts to revise the absence policy when absence is running below 2%. And we believe this is full blatantly driving down our members' pay terms and conditions. But also, go on.
I'm just going to say on that though, they are offering more money. And when it comes to performance-related pay, many people watching will say, well, welcome to the rest of the world. That's how lots of companies operate in 2024.
That may well be the case, but it's our members, our salaried members, have not been working under that sort of model for many years. There's some long-serving employees. We're not adverse to negotiating change, but this is just an imposition as far as we're concerned. We've offered to reopen the negotiations to understand how the performance-related pay may indeed work, and as I've already indicated, higher graded management have been on exactly the same 100% performance-related pay for a number of years, and it has created an untold issue, and indeed they have been in dispute with actions short of strike leading up to most recent times.
And what damage are these strikes going to do? Because not all the workforce is unionised. I think it's only half in this particular area. Can Ford... essentially, can they afford this strike, if you like?
I'm sure Ford can indeed afford this strike, and striking.
So what are you hoping to achieve with it then? If you think
what we're hoping to achieve first off is to get Ford back round the table so we can have some proper, sensible negotiations. We're about to head into 2024 pay negotiations, and the response from the company is they won't give us nothing, our members nothing, unless we agree their own demands dating back to 2023. Now, if they're not willing to come back round the table, then we have every intention in escalating the action. Tomorrow is a National Day of Action. We will be serving notice for targeted action in the coming weeks, and we implore Ford again to take our demands very, very seriously, come back to the negotiating table, and let's resolve this matter as soon as possible.
Ford is saying, though, that actually when you look at what your workers get comparable to similar workers in similar industries, that the overall package they've worked out is 50% better than comparable packages in similar roles. Do you think they're just making that up? Do you not accept that?
That's what they would argue. We would argue that our members deserve exactly the pay that they've earned and negotiated over the years. This is also, I mean, we must remember this is a company that since the turn of this century has done little for the UK other than close factories. And it's really disappointing that what is left of Ford in the UK, that we're having to resort to industrial action to get a reasonable, not only get a reasonable pay reward for our members' endeavours, but also to protect the terms and conditions that they've fought long and hard to achieve.
OK, Vince, appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for
Thank you very much.
You're watching Business Live here on Sky News. We're back in just a couple of minutes looking at the markets. The FTSE down a little today. We'll be explaining why and looking at the rest of the markets in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels. I've witnessed migration across Europe close up.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Free, wherever you get your news.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Seagal?
I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent. Sky News, the full story first.
All right, ready?
Not really.
We've heard it could be painful.
A bit more pain now, free up more money to spend.
But will it be as the government claims?
Ow! The pain now is just too much to bear.
Temporary pain for long-term gain.
Right, all done.
Not bad, actually.
The budget, the full story, first on Sky News.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. Greg Milam, Sky News, Manchester.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
If you forgot your pajamas, Emirates has got you covered. Fly Emirates. Fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back. Let's go through the markets on this Tuesday afternoon. We're going to start in Europe, which turned negative. Sea of red there as traders continue to digest the latest slew of earnings reports and look ahead to the corporate results coming out of the United States tonight. Here in London, the FTSE also down a little today. Obviously, all eyes will be on that budget tomorrow. As we discussed a little earlier, HSBC shares have been pretty good today, up just over 3% after it issued that third quarter earnings report, beating analyst estimates and announced that it is going to repurchase up to $3 billion worth of shares. Over in the US, stocks have opened flat with investors focusing on key corporate earnings releases, including reports from the Magnificent Seven, the so-called big tech giants. Google's parent company Alphabet, along with Snap, which owns Snapchat, Reddit, and Advanced Micro Devices, are all scheduled to post their quarterly results after the market closes tonight. And the tech juggernauts of Meta Platforms and Microsoft are due to report tomorrow, while Apple is up on Thursday. Pretty big week. And on the currencies, as we can see, the pound is up a little against the dollar and also up against the euro today. And when it comes to oil, a barrel of Brent crude will set you back $71 a barrel. That's down a fraction on today. Well, let's bring in Michael Brown. He's Chief Investment Officer at Martin Currie and joins us. Very good afternoon to you, Michael. First of all, let's just look at HSBC. Up today, unsurprising, given those very healthy profits.
A different set of numbers, and what the market's liked is the fact of the breadth of the earnings that's come from the bank. It's not been just about net interest margin improving. They love the buybacks. That's obviously really positive at this point in time. But I've got to have that sense that whether or not it's repeatable, we've seen that question mark on the other banks at this moment. Yeah, is that the best of the banking industry income that we're going to see over the next 2 or 3 years as interest rates fall?
And let's talk about the so-called Magnificent Seven. I mean, it's a big week for the tech companies in the States. Anything we should be looking out for in particular, or who do you think is going to do particularly well this week?
Tesla obviously started off with a bang last week, and that's really sort of fired up the market. I would look at the advertising behind Alphabet and the advertising behind Meta to give ourselves a sense of where the US consumer is at this moment in time. We had a slightly shaky set of jobs numbers out today. There are some indications that the US economy is okay, but it's slowing down. So that's the bit I would start to focus on. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, once again, outside of the Magnificent Seven, Nvidia really shines.
And let's stay in the United States, because really fascinating this, isn't it? The Washington Post have got themselves in a spot of bother. They've not backed any of the US presidential candidates. And that apparently has caused or led to up to 200,000 subscribers cancelling their subscription.
And you know, this is the risk you run, isn't it? As being a newspaper proprietor, you're expected to take a position. You're going to upset somebody. Maybe we should applaud more newspaper proprietors being independent rather than actually nailing colours to the mast at this moment in time. But that, I think, is part of the online, if you like, it's the online risk that you run in certain circumstances with your customer base, and it's clearly something as we go forward, as we go into that reaction from the consumer, the speed of reaction from the consumer. It's something that businesses have to be really cognizant about and the risks that they run.
And just very finally, Martin, on this side of the pond, obviously all eyes on tomorrow's budget. What are you looking out for?
Well, for me, it's going to be wealth taxes. For me, it's going to be, you know, if there's no increase in income tax or VAT or corporation tax, and we know we've had the national insurance story well covered, for me, it's going to be wealth taxes. What are you going to do for the savers? How are you going to look at capital gains tax, inheritance tax? Are you going to try and change the barriers between them? Are you going to try and incentivise one side, let's say the bond side, rather than the other? Are you going to disincentivise people investing in property? That, for me, is the really big element here that's going to be, well, potentially, if the press is right, some of the biggest changes that we've seen in the savings taxation area for a very, very long time. Okay. And it could have really significant repercussions.
Michael, we will wait for the budget, of course, tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed, Michael Brown there, joining us from Brighton. That's it from me on Business Live for today. We're not around tomorrow because of the budget. Coverage starts at 10 a.m. Do stay tuned for that. And also for Mark Austin, who's up next with the News Hour.